You're finally at that hot new spot, the one your friends keep raving about, sitting across from your date. It's going
Another round?
really well. And that dish you've been dying to try, oh, it's headed your way. You can smell it, hear it sizzling fresh off that skillet as it comes closer, closer, and served. Go ahead, enjoy. After your phone sneaks a bite first. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DEFEND to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code DEFEND. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over and physically present in Ohio. Valid one offer per first-time depositors who have not already redeemed $200 in free bets via pre-launch offer. Minimum $5 deposit and wager. $200 issued as bonus bets. Eligibility restrictions apply. See dkng.co/OH for terms.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year. It's January 5th, 2023. On behalf of Dave Davies from Weights and Biases, it's Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. And again, Happy New Year. 2023 is going to be a year of extraordinary changes. The last 3 years sort of feel like a coiled spring with a buildup of so much potential energy prepared to become kinetic. It's going to feel like the advent of mass computing all over again. This might be particularly jarring for some and present ranges of opportunities previously unknown for others. What's happening right now is the predecessor of what might be the last human-organized information environment in our species' somewhat short history. Change happens and change is good. The advancements made in AI, particularly with OpenAI, have given innovative people more tools than we've ever dreamed possible. That some of those tools are sort of like blunt objects isn't as relevant as the rapidity of their evolution and the dozens of things good SEOs are already learning to do with them. For instance, check out the number of recent videos by Matt Diggity. He has one in particular where he's suggesting 7 specific uses of ChatGPT, none of which involve actually writing content for your pages. You know that meme about how you and your preteen buddies are about to go bike riding as a gang for the very last time, but none of you are aware of it? Yeah. I think we might have seen the last year we could hold on to the concept of what was normal, and we didn't know it. Things are going to move a lot faster from here on, and it might be good, it might be bad, and it might just be opportunities wrapped as a new set of bytes, and should inspire you to do great things, but it should also scare the living bejesus out of you. The weirdest thing about change is it's often like watching a child grow up. You don't really notice the inches until a foot of them suddenly happened. And then suddenly, when that thing's about to happens, it tends to happen so quickly, you don't notice until it's there. Happy New Year. It's going to be a weird one. Be ready for virtually anything.
Yeah, that's a pretty good Cliff Notes.
Yeah. I do want to go back to those videos by Matt Diggity. Diggity might turn to the dark arts in SEO very, very frequently, but that dude knows how to use technology and he knows how search works. And every one of the tips he uses, none of which are really black hat tips at all, are brilliant. And again, none of which actually involve writing the content with AI, but using AI to create brilliant sets of content and knowing where the content should go. Smart kid.
Yes, that might be an understatement, if anything. So yeah, he really is. And the thing is that I like Eleda had written a piece as well. Eleda Solis, for users who don't know which Eleda I'd be talking about, had written a piece, and I think it was 20. Just they were little quick things you can do that just some people might not, sort of compiling a list of here's some things that people are doing, SEOs are using ChatGPT for, and not to be confused with GPT-4, which we'll be chatting about in just a little bit here.
Any second there. That's wordplay.
So yeah. That did take just a quick second. But yeah, the thing that I think is most exciting about this kind of stuff is we're really, well, there's two things that are really, really exciting about it. The first is when we're seeing these examples, be it with Leda or whoever might be sharing them, these are really highlighting the fact that it's really only limited by our creativity, right? Like we can see these things and go, oh, okay, that's great. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need to go, oh, that person's using it. This is a list of all the things that we can do with ChatGPT or GPT or large language models or whatever it is. It's just think about this as concepts of a variety of things. Now think about what you need done and what data you have available. There, now go. Right, like figure out what you can do with this. So, cluster keywords. I've got a list of 3,000 keywords. Cluster keywords by this type of intent doing this. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be a good head start before you dive in.
It's going to move a lot faster than you're going to move in doing the initial ordering. If you have to do fine tuning, that's great.
Exactly. One of the other things I find really, really exciting about this stuff that I view as like just tip of the iceberg, and we can see people start to play with it, and mostly they're playing with it with sort of the text or image generation models, right? Where people will be like now training it to go, I recognize that I'm Dave Davies, right? Like feeding Stable Diffusion or something like that, and go, okay, it has this model. Now I'm just going to teach it that Dave Davies looks like me, and now Dave Davies on the moon dressed like Batman, right? Like, and okay, now I can put me on the moon dressed as Batman or whatever it is. Once we get to the point of being able to do that more, like people can, but it's not super easy at this point, to actually train it to go, oh, okay, this is an SEO use case, right? Like I now am training this language model to accomplish, GPT-J or something like one of the more open source language models. I'm going to train it on these keyword sets to accomplish this task. I think that's where we're not even really like, we're all fascinated by what ChatGPT can do, because the first thing that we've all seen to sort of do it. I mean, yes, I was using something based on it before that. A few other people were, but really not in large scale. But we're still just pretty much tip of the iceberg. We're using it for what it sort of pre-built to do. We're going, oh, okay, here's this model. It can do cool stuff when I tell it what I want. But very few people are actually going, oh, I'm going to dump my data in. I'm going to train it on SEO tasks specifically and go, for this kind of task, here's how I need you to respond and sort of fine tune it on that. And then dumping our own data. And they're like, we're going, hey, what is this? And asking it for feedback on a model that was trained in the past. Like, I'm not sure when like the 3.5 is the version of GPT that it's on. Yes, it's got some pretty current data in there, but it's still older. So
by and large, I read somewhere, maybe you could answer this for sure. By and large, the data set that GPT 3.x was trained on is good to what, like the middle of summer 2021?
Yeah, it's a funny, like, depends on how we measure things, right? Where we've got our initial GPT-3 set, where it was trained, and that's sort of the heavy lifting of how a model is trained and how the weights and stuff are sort of factored in. And that does go back to then. So that's basically as current as a lot of the core functionality of GPT is. And here's, how the number of the parameters and the size of the model, it's been fine-tuned a little bit since then. The last one, GPT 3.5 came out, which did have some additional training. So there is a bit of new information in there, but it's all still based on the sort of model structure that was previously set up. I think it was 2 or 3 months ago. It would have been the last, the more current version. So it'll have a bit of new information, not a bunch of great information. So I think, to your point, we're not really using what we would consider to be fresh data in there. And we're going to talk about that when we're talking about what Microsoft is doing and why I think that might blow up really, really poorly for them. Now we have GPT-4 coming out, so that'll be fresher, like the model structure will be fresher. They'll keep it updated with some new data. There's only one thing that I think could make this all turn the corner on sorry, and I'm sort of going in a slightly different direction than I started on here, but one thing that'll get us turning the big corner will be, can you make it evergreen? And that's what Microsoft's going to need. And for listeners who don't know, well, you know what, we'll get into a little bit later, because I'll let us talk about the story of like Microsoft and what they're doing with ChatGPT, you know, in just a little bit. But with that turn, you know, I guess before we dive into that story, we can talk from my perspective of, is ChatGPT a Google killer? Right. And I guess that's the question we need to ask, because when we're getting into the story of Microsoft sort of getting closer in bed with OpenAI on ChatGPT, which is the story we'll be talking about momentarily, the question is, does ChatGPT need to be part of search? And does this give them an advantage over Google? Right. Like, does ChatGPT pose a threat to Google? And for anybody who's used ChatGPT, you, me, you, Diggity, Aleda, all of us, we've talked about it on the show. If would I trust it to be kind of cool and create an interesting little outline for me on a piece of content? Sure. Yeah, no problem. And then I would go through, as we were talking about, and I'd go through that keyword list and go, yeah, it was pretty good. Got me a great head start. Would I trust it to go, I have a mole on my leg. Now, please tell me, should I go see a doctor? Would I trust something like ChatGPT? Because that's what we're trusting Google for. We're trusting Google for like health and financial information and stuff like that. And that's where I think, you know, ChatGPT isn't particularly accurate in the degree.
I may or may not trust Google or ChatGPT with my actual health.
Right.
But we use search for a lot of things. What's the future of mining in northern Canada? Looking at rare earth elements. That would be a great question to ask ChatGPT, and I'm sure it would come up with a relatively sound answer that I could base a good deal of research off of. I don't know what Google would give me if I was to ask that kind of question.
Well, and that is a great point. And what we're counting on ChatGPT for in this story that you're mentioning, or this sort of scenario you're talking about here, is how fresh is the data? Right? Like, can it go? Basically, you need sort of like a hybrid where, yes, I don't trust Google. I don't trust Google to give me my health information in a featured snippety kind of way, but I do know I trust Mayo Clinic this much. And I trust Huffington Post, for users who can't see me, way lower like, on providing me feedback. You know, how, you know, I don't trust Google, but I do trust some sources, and Google's just providing me the sources. Whereas when you bring ChatGPT in there, now you're going, here's the answer. And that, I think, is why Google hasn't done it, right? They haven't gone this route of going, we're just going to provide this. When I ask my Google Home, let me just hit the mute button here. You know, when I'm asking it something, it always is very clear on going, from this source, here is this answer. Never just here's this answer. Because if I'm asking it something critical, you know, this might, maybe I'm shouting across the room because my kid's hurt and choking and I need something to do, right? Like, I need to know if this is trustable information. Would I just trust ChatGPT to spew that back at me as a piece of information? Maybe it might give me a decent response. I'm sure for that, maybe it would. But would I stake my kid's life on that? No. Right. And that's where having these like reference points is more important. And I mean, I'm listing sort of an extreme example where time is absolutely critical. So yes, in that event, I might go, whatever, an answer is better than nothing, just whatever, right? Like, you know, but these are the sorts of things that we do end up dealing with in search. And that's where I think we're in an interesting sort of scenario. And to the example you were giving, how current is the information? Because it might be different today than it was yesterday in like what's going on with mining.
So right now, we're ChatGPT, as we understand it, is working on its 3.5, you say it's its third 0.5 iteration.
Mhm.
There might be a 3.6, there might be a leap to 4.0, might be a whole brand new set of data, or data sets that it gets trained on, and very probably is. Bing announced recently, like this morning, that they're going to be integrating ChatGPT into their search engine sometime around March or April.
Mhm.
Hence, people have been speculating on whether GPT would be a Google killer or not. Google itself was worried it would be a Google killer. I understand that they had several all hands meetings about how this might pose a threat to them or some of their operations. And I'm positive that ChatGPT does pose a threat, perhaps not a direct threat, but the way it can be used to teach other things.
Mhm.
What if, okay, so Bing is going to be integrating ChatGPT into its search engine again sometime in the near the beginning of the second quarter. Dave, earlier you sent you shared a graphic with me that suggested that the data set that ChatGPT is learning now is minuscule compared to the new stuff that's coming. Like when? Soon?
Yeah, it's like they don't pre-announce, but there were rumors going back, even a few weeks ago that we were dealing at that time within the next few months.
Okay.
So this may be the game changer, and this might be what Google knows and why they have like red alerts going on. When I first heard of ChatGPT as like a Google killer, and as I was even mentioning on the show, I'm meaning it in its current format, right? That we're looking at right now, because there are so many shortcomings in it, like just so astronomically many shortcomings in it, as something that could be a threat to Google. However, and even in Bing's hands, in its current format, it just isn't something for all the reasons we were chatting about earlier. Would I trust it? No. Does it give good answers? Sometimes, right? Like, is it always kind of humorous? Mostly when it's wrong, and that's often enough that it's quite humorous frequently. So there are some big problems with it from that context. What may change with GPT-4? And I don't know this. I mean, it's not like OpenAI's calling Dave and going, "Hey, here's what we're working on next." But yeah, we're moving from, well, we're dramatically scaling the reference points, the amount of data being used, and how that data is being digested. So okay, there's that. It'll get far better at understanding. I suspect what we'll be seeing is a crossover of understanding concepts better. It's already pretty solid, just not good enough for me to rely on as a search thing. So I'm not digging at GPT-3 here. It's just going, it's not there yet. Clearly they know that. That's why they're working on GPT-4. So it's going to a massive scale. Like the estimates, like sort of I've been seeing, but these are not official numbers at all. But we're looking at about 500 times the number of parameters. So it's looking at 500 times sort of more like little points to weigh off and go, oh, okay, let's balance this all together when we're thinking about how to build the model to generate context. So basically, it's like this massive training set is going to be way more advanced than what we're dealing with right now. Fantastic. That still doesn't actually really address our big problem from it being a threat to search. Like, yes, it'll be more advanced, but that still doesn't help us go, what happened yesterday? And that's the big problem that we hit. So what they need to be able to do is take this massive, 500 times improvement in this thing. Then they need to be able to scale that model down into something that they can run in what's referred to as inference, which basically means real time, on the fly, dump data in, and then pull an answer out in real time. They need to be able to make the model small enough and flexible enough, like we saw with Dolly, right? I mean, you remember Dolly Mini was all the thing, and you'd sort of like type in a thing and it would create a picture, or you'll use ChatGPT but actually this is a great example because everybody's used ChatGPT, and you type in your thing and you watch it write out what it's doing. Fantastic. Very, very interesting. And it's taking that time to write it out, to actually figure out the next thing to add, like the next word to add. Like it's actually having to do that ad hoc on the fly. In this case, what we're going to be asking this system to do, if Microsoft is actually going to make this a real-time thing, which is what I'm hoping they're doing with GPT-4, is creating a system where you can scale that model down so much that at the time the query is run, it can run inference and go, here's the top 20 pages that we have for the search result. Dump that data in and create a chat, like augment basically the prompt that we're giving it to go, here's the 10 pages, here's the sort of like entities that are on that pages, dump them in, pull in some news at the same time, like basically pull all of that search data in and then be able to produce an answer. And I think that's a big ask from a system because of the complexity of the model that we're producing. If Google tried to do that, even that would be incredibly difficult. But Google, I think right now, is not a dig at Bing. Google has a more reliable set of search results, I think, and a much better understanding, at least from the papers I've read. But I've read more Google papers than I have Bing, so that could just be my own personal bias. They have a good, solid understanding of concepts and entities. They're really, really good at that. So I think they'll be able to see a little bit more on the freshness there. But at any rate, that's not the big problem that we're getting to here. Is if Microsoft wants to add ChatGPT in, it needs to be running that real time, which means it needs to be on the fly, pulling in this collection of information that they have and then spewing out a result. Maybe that's part of what's baked into GPT-4 though, and that would just be amazing to be able to take that large model and make it small enough to be able to pull that off.
Well, and also I think it's a matter of scale too. Right now, users, especially users who don't have tokens or tickets with various AI programs, might wait up to 45 seconds, a minute, or whatever to get a response. If you had to wait a minute for your Google search results, you'd be going to DuckDuckGo or Bing awfully quick.
Yeah.
But it's okay with ChatGPT AI. It's new, and we expect it to act like a digital watch from the 1980s for a little bit. But it's still shiny and really cool looking. I mean, still, the interface of a 1980s digital watch is still pretty cool, but really inefficient. That's just a matter of scale, though, for getting enough like computers and enough data centers running AI software. It's a massive data engineering undertaking, but again, it seems to me a matter of scale and relevancy. A Herculean task, nevertheless. But if they could pull it off and they could make the results come up, as you say, in real time, and that result set was pulling from a data set 500 times what ChatGPT is pulling from today, who knows how they're going to use the data that's being drawn from ChatGPT. Maybe they're going to be using that data to inform Bing as it makes search results, much like Google uses AI to inform it as it creates search results. Whatever will happen, though, Google, or like you said, I think Google was quite aware that something challenging is going down and knows it has to rise to meet something. It doesn't know what yet, though.
Well, and one of the interesting things here is it's basically two approaches to the same war, right? Like, I mean, war. Like they both want search dominance. Google has it now. Bing wants some of that market share. Fair enough. We'll sort of see, the way I see it anyway, is two approaches coming in, because we're going to end up at the same spot. They're both going to end up doing fundamentally the same thing, mainly because users are going to end up going, I like this better. And both of them are going to end up doing the same thing. So what will end up in like, if I'm right anyway, or my prediction for what we'll see through 2023 here is Bing is starting from the angle of ChatGPT is the root, and now we're going to dump our data in, right? So sort of going, okay, we know that users really, really like this format, so they've got their format. Now they're going to try and plunk their data in. Whereas with Google, they don't have the ChatGPT function. I'm sure they've built some stuff internally. I could probably hunt it down if I really like. I'm sure they have that function because they have like Google Home, and clearly they've been building, like working on this sort of stuff. And large language models and stuff. Like clearly they have that sort of in their back pocket, not as far advanced as OpenAI's GPTs are though. So however, what they're extremely good at is understanding concepts and entities. Like that they've invested massive, massive money into. Hell, their entire search result, like a massive chunk of it, is based on just their understanding of concepts, entities, how things interconnect, all of that sort of stuff. So which one will win? The person that gets a bit of the head start on the chat function, like the interactive function, also the person who has a very good relationship with OpenAI because they're part of the funding, like that's Microsoft's
Indeed,
why they did that, I'm sure. Or will Google be better with their starting spot on a better understanding of how the concepts and entities of the web are mapped, and now need to play catch up on here's how we can present that in a natural language format? Which one will win? If I had to put my money on it, I would put it on Google, with Microsoft taking some market share and an early lead coming up, and then Google's ability to basically rip off the idea of ChatGPT, but then put a back end of more reliable data on it and going, okay, there we go. I'd put my money on Google to win that one.
Absolutely, I could see this playing out just like it did in the early part of the 2Ks with two massive organizations having the exact same hamburger, but only one of them knowing the secret sauce to make it profitable.
Right.
And that was Google. Okay.
Well, you actually bring up a really interesting point there, though, is when you're doing that, when you're providing an answer like that, where is the profit? Now, there's a completely different sort of question. If you've got people reliant on you just asking questions and then hearing an answer, where's the money?
Oh, Dave, you've been in search long enough to know that truth is only a loss leader. Shit. I mean, shoot. The 10 blue links are only there to draw people to the ads, right? Same with Facebook. The whole thing is just there to draw you to the ads. The only reason they even put news programming on TV is so that they can sell soap to you.
That is true.
And something's got to pay the piper. Somebody has to pay for Pied Piper's servers. And with the mess that they've been making over at Hulu, I mean at Twitter and Hulu, or I mean at Meta, incidentally, did you hear what happened to Hulu? I mean Meta, over in Europe. They got dinged with a few $100 million for violating Europe's privacy laws, personal data privacy laws, because as of yesterday, they're not allowed to do that anymore. Entire business models will be changing in 2023. And I'm betting that AI plays a massive role in replacing one business model for another. Another thing that happened recently is NFTs tends to be not being programmed into video games anymore. The NFT market was made unhip by many people's least favorite.
Your favorite band's about to play a sold-out show. You got in.
Over here!
With a friend. And found a spot close enough to see the set list. They're definitely playing your song. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Weird uncle Donald Trump launching his own series of NFTs, and the failure of many before that. Again, the business models of the web are changing really, really rapidly. And 2023 is going to be a year of those major changes. We should probably talk about some SEO stuff. But it's hard not to talk about how massive change is affecting SEO when right now we're still in the middle of what feels like a fairly significant algorithm shift with the helpful algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing happened on the way to trying to figure out the helpful algorithm recently. Did you see Roger Monti's article asking if a research paper that Google had published was actually them covering the helpful algorithm?
I did not. I saw you share. I have not had time to go through it though. So
it was over at Search Engine Journal, and Roger spotted this research paper and pointed out that it covers a lot of the points that helpful is trying to cover. Better collections of data and topical collections of data, or of result sets, and trying to weed out content that is super low quality or written clearly to manipulate search engines rather than motivate human readers. The paper Roger was citing may or may not be about the helpful algorithm, although it very likely covers many of the concepts Google wants us thinking about with helpful. A close read of it, though, show that sometimes people at Google don't necessarily understand what SEO is all about. The document asks the question, are most SEO practices of low quality? And I'm going to read quickly just a quick paragraph from it. Documents that attempt to perform SEO tend to be flagged as very low quality. This is intuitive, since these texts tend to simplify or to simply string a series of keywords together and are therefore incoherent. Furthermore, we found a moderate number of product pages and professional profiles that also attempt to perform some form of SEO. We observe that media-centric domains, such as image hosting domains, often contain incomprehensible embedded text, possibly for SEO. That's the quote from a Google research document about what they consider to be low quality documents. That's also a lot of the extent of the mention of SEO in those documents, in Google's research document. So I don't know. It gives the impression that Google researchers or some people at Google have a very low opinion of SEO, and ask somebody on the street or in digital business their opinion of SEO, and you got a 50-50 chance of having a good experience there, because they had a 50-50 chance of having a good experience. John Mueller responded to the SEO controversy around wondering if Google loves us or not. And he wrote, I think one of the challenges is that quote unquote good SEO is essentially invisible. It's a well-structured site. It's good content. People like it. Those are not attributes associated with SEO by the bigger web. So John likes us. He gets it.
Or at least John knows that most of his content being produced is because we're asking for stuff. He needs us for generating the content he produces. No, I mean, I understand where this comes. Like, I think we all can, right? Like, we all have seen, like everybody in the listening audience here has seen, landed at a page and gone, ugh, right? Like, I know who built that, and we all know who built, I mean, not by name, but we know what kind of SEO went behind it, and it kind of worked, and that's why we're there, and we're kind of, you know, a little embarrassed for our entire like profession that like somehow this managed to like rise to the top through things. Side note, Google's doing a way better job than they were before, because I remember days when I used to just hit page 3, so I would bypass people like me just to get to the results. But you know, I do get that, and that's what we call SEO, but really it is what John's talking about, right? Like when I think of, well, I've said this before, and it's sort of been the way I've tried to approach things for at least a good, number of years, is when I've been to a page and optimize it, my goal is that if somebody read it yesterday and somebody read it today, that casual reader would not know anything had changed, except that they found it today and they didn't yesterday. Right? Like that's the only difference that I try and make is just maintaining exactly what this page was built to be. And there are ways to do that. So to John's point, yeah, that's the ideal. Sometimes, sometimes you need to use a sledgehammer to get through. Like I picture it, and when I'm saying that, I mean, I'm Amazon and I'm trying to come up with ways to get things done. Well, you need to sort of like shotgun and go, we need global rules, and they're going to work 90% of the time, right? Like this global structure. But when somebody doesn't put in this section, or somebody like only puts in a few words of this section, or it's user generated content. I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad. It's great stuff, but sometimes we know the user generated content I'm talking about. You can end up with these sort of like spammy sort of problems, even in good systems. And that's just what happens. And unfortunately, especially with things like Amazon, and it's probably the stuff that they're talking about, like the people who are like, this is SEO content, it's part of a well-built structure. So it ranks, even though it's spam. But if the whole site looked like that, it wouldn't work. But the whole site doesn't work like that. You're just putting like sort of like keyword stuffed content into an otherwise good site and structure. So it's working. And it's rising to the top. So over SEO, but it still works. Anyway, that's just my like little like sort of like side note on that. So they're both kind of right, but I like to think John is more right these days of the two.
Well, John is definitely more right. Good SEO is invisible. SEO is about making things easier for the site visitor. It's about surfacing information, making information visible, and making it easy for people to find stuff. Once they find it, you got to get them from point A to point B, and that's kind of our job. Google's making good SEO about making a better and faster web. Usability is now a massive factor at Google, and want to really from recent hard learned experience, keep up with core web vitals, especially page speed in the mobile environment. Pages that decline in that, even if they're borderlining, like 2.5 second on first contentful page or something, take care of that. Take care of it immediately. There is correlation is not causation. However, I had this one site. This happened very recently, and we had a number of things to straighten out. And I had to decide which was more important: schema or the several thousand product pages that were sitting literally at 2.5 on first contentful paint, which is the exact cutoff point.
Right.
And so, it's Christmas time, and I'm thinking, what's really important here? Schema. Make sure that the result sets that are there, which are very, very strong, make sure that they have as much information packed into them and look as good as possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have X amount of developer time. Christmas is coming. We have other clients we're working with as well. So we concentrate on schema because that's what is really important here. Having made that choice, I would have chosen differently, because I'm telling you, the pages that we should have concentrated on page speed, they're suffering.
On the plus side, though, like I get that, and hindsight's 2020. You had to make a choice there. You don't know whether you're making the right one until you're at the other side of that. But as a plus, if ChatGPT and similar systems end up just dominating, it won't matter what's on your page. They'll just digest it, index it, and then just spew it out as their own answer. And so it won't matter. You're not going to drive the traffic anyway. So there you go. That'll just be better. You won't have to worry about the visitor at all. No, I'm just, tongue in cheek, obviously. But But yeah, that is an interesting question you faced. And I just, if it helps, would have made exactly the same call you would have made. I'm like, instant, Google will index this, it will be done. Like the impact will be like measured in days, not months. So I would have taken that, like given the time frame you were dealing. You probably would have made a different call if it was July and you were planning for the holidays. You probably would have gone with the long haul thing and then worked on schema in November.
Well, actually, this is what I'm saying though. On on paper, in our mental mind's eye, the decision makes perfect sense. But Google is reacting to page speed issues very quickly. I understood Core Web Vitals were updated, every quarter or something, like not as frequently as you'd. I think they're looking at it a lot closer than they say they're looking at it. Again, correlation is not causation, but this was my experience, and it was shocking. And I'm sticking to this for just to see what happens.
And it's worth doing. Like, it's not to say that walking down halls means that you're going to end up with a sore foot. But if you walk down the same hall 100 times and a hammer falls on your foot all 100 times, it's not necessary that the 101st time that would happen. Doesn't even mean there's necessarily correlation. Could be a weird ass coincidence. But I would stop walking down that hall.
Or wear combat boots.
Wear combat boots. Good
and
call.
Optimize your experience.
Yeah.
Okay. What John Mueller to the SEO rescue again? Precisely suggesting what SEO skills are going to be necessary in 2023. He had a 3-word response: curiosity and persistence. I think that's fair. All the stuff that you learned about how the web works in your previous years of experience are important too. But, curiosity and persistence.
It's really interesting that the company I work for has, core values. I think all good companies do. And one of them happens to be curiosity. So I love seeing that one in there. And another one, it's funny, it's not persistence, but it's grit. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Just like, all right, buckle up and get it done.
SEO's kind of always been about that, eh? Like we have to learn stuff as we go along, figure out what Google is trying to do or what search engines are trying to do, and in their opaque way of instructing us. It takes a lot of persistence, trial and error to get it right, and I think that's exactly what John's saying. Keep at it.
Well, indeed. And I mean, I think of the different parts of the job that naturally there's 2 tasks I think of right now that immediately fall into one, but not the other necessarily. I mean, there might be a bit of overlap, but curiosity, like that just falls into everything, right? Like we're chatting about ChatGPT, like earlier in the show, and like, oh, okay, and Bing's doing this. Okay, this is something that we need to look at that didn't exist 2 months ago, right? But we need to be playing around with it now. We're talking about different people doing different things. Like, wonderful, like that curiosity and like investigating and what would the next iteration be like and that sort of thing. But then I think of, I have 500 pages and here's this update, and now I need to go back and properly internally link them. That's going to be persistence. It's going to be, I now need to go through manually 500 pages of past content and make sure that all of my internal links are right, because I need to dot that I and cross that T on the way through. And there's nothing curious about that. Like there's no curiosity involved. It's just hunker down. This is going to suck. Get it done. Yeah. And some of the best SEO comes from that, right? It's just like, it's not magic.
Nope,
you just pushed through, got the job done. It took like weeks sometimes, but it paid off in the end, and your entire site, all the queries went up by 1. Like there was no like glory moment, but when you look at your analytics, you sure see it, right? Those sort of moments.
When and none of us are Walmart except Walmart, but when Walmart was able to increase page speed by say 100 milliseconds or so, they noticed that they were able to make a 1% increase in sales week over week.
Right.
Now, again, the 1% mightn't seem much, but I think for any organization, 1% is actually a substantial amount of money, or can be a substantial money. And if you're Walmart at that scale, it's a Herculean amount of money. Any even incremental improvements have ripple effects in the long run, and the web, if anything, is stuff at scale. And cool thing about the persistence game is, luckily, very smart people have watched the SEOs play the persistence game and have come up with tools to do a lot of that persistence work for us. Honest to God, I mean, like, I'm just gonna fire up Sitebulb and have it tell me everything about the back end of a website rather than go looking through 500 pages to inspect the backlink to find the one that reads here instead of smart product name.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm
thanks to
still
Dixon
seeing
for
that.
some of the work he's doing in the area as well. You know, speaking of like our friends over our Dixon, friends over at InLinks and stuff. Like, yeah, you're right, 100%.
You want to talk about, like, I wasn't going to say this, but you want to talk about smart use of ChatGPT, and Dixon has integrated, or is able to integrate, output of ChatGPT in within links. Insane stuff can happen. In fact,
Use of your own discretion.
We really got to get around to getting him on the show, like, in the next couple of weeks, because and we're closing time on this show because this is your fourth or fifth last show. You're moving forward into a new series on AI, which I'll have you know, YouTube has predicted will be among the most valuable areas of niches of content creation on not AI content creation, but how to create with AI. So you're good for a whole year at least until ChatGPT takes that away from you. But we need to get Dixon on in the next couple of weeks just to see where that conversation goes.
Yeah, I would love to. And next week, if he's not on next week we can chat about when that is. We'll sort out a good time and see if we can have him on. And I'm sure he'll be happy to join us.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate, YouTube did predict what was going to go viral in 2023. I guess it's trying to, push and help its own content creators. The number one thing was content explaining how to use AI and integrate AI into your business, office, or life operations. What I really enjoyed, though, was some of the content that YouTube suggested beyond AI that was also going to go viral. Way more human-like experiences. It's been, I don't know, it's been years of narcissism in user-generated media. And there's this character out there named Mr. Beast. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his videos. this guy, he's nuts in a really sweet way. And he challenges other people to do crazy long-term stunts that end up actually raising like crap tons of money, usually for relatively good causes. Google or YouTube is suggesting stuff like that is going to be viral in 2023. People helping other people doing good stuff. I don't know. Way to go, Mr. Beast. And you guys in the AI field, you're all going to do great.
So now if we can just get AI to go out and just like give money to random people, like the for folks who don't know Mr. Beast, go like hunt him down on YouTube. Very easy to find. just go to YouTube. You'll probably stumble on him if you watch more than 2 videos. But yeah, it's totally like some fun to watch, right? Like just like, I don't know, the last one I saw was him just hunting down streaming gamers where they were the only people watching, and then like donating $1,000 to them, right? Just like, and then watching their face in real time as like this like donation came in, right? Just these like fun stunts where you're helping somebody who just literally is just doing what they want to be doing, or just in the right place, being kind. Yeah, it's a ton of, okay. Now I know how I'm spending my lunch is heading over and watching some of Mr. Beast's videos. So there we are.
Okay. We got maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. Anything that's standing out that you think needs to get covered before I go on a Twitter rant?
Yeah, one I'll just draw people's attention to. It's over at Search Engine Land from yesterday. Nicole Farley posted it. Google's removing redundant keywords, so that's something that they've often done. Like, hey, we'll take out these redundants. One of the things, this merges very, very poorly with the auto apply that they sort of make sure your auto applies off, folks, by the way, is now they're just going to be removing if there are different match types. So, and I often have done this, I'm going to have exact phrase and broad all in one, and then just sort of like let it sort of bid. It's now just going to count all of those as redundant and leave the broad. So you may need to anybody may need to restructure. It's only doing it in the ad group level. So you may need to start restructuring and go, all my broads are over in a different ad group than my phrase, than my exact, and if you don't just want everything being sort of like lumped into broad. I really, really, really don't like this. I think it's taking some control away from the average user, and it's just lumping this back into broad. In some ways, it'll force people to do what they should have been doing, which is move your broad over into a different ad group. But I have shortcutted with that in some past campaigns where there just wasn't sort of it would have been cost prohibitive just in time to segment out like that. And now you need to go back and revisit them all and make sure that you're not letting Google just go, everything's broad and running from there. So reminder to get that done, take a look at your match types and adjust your campaigns as necessary, and also turn off auto apply, because Google just does weird crap like this. And then they don't inform you. It'll still show up in your recommendations. It just won't automatically go, yeah, we're leaving you with broad, and then you scratching your head wondering why you've got such an increase in traffic from stuff that really isn't as relevant as you might want. So
Didn't Google's been slowly clawing control away from paid search managers in the last 18 months, 24 months or so. But hasn't that sort of happened with the side promise that they're going to optimize the campaign to provide the best possible results at the lowest possible cost to the advertiser?
Yeah, I mean, and they're delivering on one side of their promise. Like, they do tend to actually be doing a fairly good job with their data at understanding how to optimize for conversions. What they're not allocating for, so basically it seems like they're really optimizing for the low base level intermediate advertisers, and then they're punishing the advanced advertisers for that by making things more difficult. Advanced advertisers are having to move their campaigns around to get the control they need. But if I look at like just a small business owner who's coming in with their like $1,000 a month budget or something like that, it's much easier for them. So usually the people that I'm protecting, like going, it needs to be like why I hate GA4, right? Is like, it's exactly, they're catering ads to the exact people they're punishing on the GA4 side, and going, we're going to optimize to take your money, but we're not going to actually show you any, we're going to make it really difficult to understand your website traffic. Right? So they're doing an interesting one. But yes, to your point, those, the campaigns, like they're just like set it and forget it campaigns, do actually tend to perform pretty well. They're doing a really good job, in my opinion, on that one. But for the advanced users who want that slightly tighter control on which ads are firing off for which people, and where they're dealing with large budgets where they really want to fine tune, it's getting a lot harder for them. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I don't like this one though. I don't understand why they're doing this one, except to go, see, we can, and then doing it.
I suspect this will increase impressions, as you say, significantly, and possibly eat through some ad spend pretty quickly. The great squeeze, and the squeeze, the squeeze is happening from all different directions. Why shouldn't Google get in on it? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, that's it. Full clock. We gone around the circle, and we're out of time for today. So on behalf of Dave Davies from Weights and Biases, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.fm. Stick around for the next few episodes. Dave's going to be transitioning out. We're going to have some new guest hosts transitioning in. It's going to be amazingly exciting, and look for anyway. You know what? Cut that whole last part. I'm going to do the exit one more time. That sucked. Okay, we've gone full clock. Dave, thank you so much. On behalf of Dave Davies from Weights and Biases, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.fm on January 5th, 2023. Stay well, stay safe, rank well, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of webmasterradio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of webmasterradio.fm is prohibited.
Your favorite band's about to play a sold-out show, and you definitely got tickets. And drinks. Now hurry and make it back to your spot. Past this person and that person, about 20 more. Ooh, watch out for feet.
Hey.
Just keep going. A little further. Oh, there's your friend.
Over here.
Right where you want to be. Close enough to see the set list. And they're definitely playing your song. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.